Hey, welcome back. I am Father Chris.
And I'm also a father, but not ordained. I'm just Chris.
And it's really not what you think.
But listen, Chris,
Listen to your wife.
when Father is speaking, you have to engage with him talking and not cut him off. Let him finish his thoughts. Add to his conversation. Add to it.
This is like first grade.
I agree.
And
I agree. I don't. I think I don't.
And you.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that.
You
I
add
do.
to what he says.
I want to. The life of Charles de Foucault, soldier, explorer, monk, and ultimately desert hermit, ended in failure, right, by any conventional standard. At the time of his violent death, he had published none of his spiritual writings. He had founded no congregation, nor had he attracted any followers. He could not even claim responsibility for a single conversion. And yet, in time, many would regard him as one of the great spiritual figures of the 20th century. The credit of his posthumous appeal owed little to Foucault's scattered writings. Like, I love that so much, that he did nothing that people think you need to do in order to be a saint. All you want to do is live the secret hidden life of Jesus, and he's a saint.
All right. That was a good beginning. That would have been a good beginning. But then you hammered the thing. It's already playing. See, because I was filming that banter so they could use that.
I hammered what? What did I
Yeah,
hammer?
like everybody loves the saints. If you're
I
Catholic,
love the saints, yes.
right? You love the saints. I mean, we have images of the saints in our houses. We have stained glass windows. We have statues. We have devotionals. We have novenas to call on the saints' intercession. I mean, as children, and we have a school where I'm at in the parish, like that's how we captivate them very early. Is they hear the stories of the saints.
Who was your confirmation saint?
Saint Maximilian Kolbe.
I love him.
Yeah, rock star. Just his willingness to literally volunteer to die for someone. When I was, I think maybe 14 or 15 and read about him, it just really struck an chord. Because I think in the end, like, especially young men, like we want to be able to die for something. We want to be able to offer our lives for something. And for me, it inspired me, like that this man was a martyr for charity in a really dark time in human history. He stood up. So in a sense, it like motivated me to consider, would I do that for the Lord? Would I do that for a fellow human being? And I think I want to be able to do that. I pray I would have the grace to do that. And he still walks with me on the daily. Like St. Maximilian is just, I guess, if anything, I have him like as like that. He's like lionized him on my wall of saints or in my spiritual life. Just to see this man so dedicated to following Jesus that he would offer himself, and the fact that he was still alive after all of them died, like in this starvation chamber. He was ministering to them till his last dying breath, and they couldn't take him out through starvation.
I remember reading a book about him on a plane, and as Linda was pregnant, what's new? And I said to myself, I was praying, but Lord, if it's a boy, I'm going to name him Kolbe after St. Maximilian Kolbe. And if it's a girl, I'll let Linda name her.
Maxine or something?
No. But do you remember, Linda, what we were going to name Kolbe if he was a girl? Anyway, so we named him Kolbe.
I love how in different episodes you try to talk to her off camera, and she is not.
She doesn't
having none of that.
I just look at her and I think to myself, I'm so spoiled that I get to marry her. But she does embody pretty much our audience, which is I'm going to do something else.
All right, so you came into the church
listening.
in, how old are you when you came into the church?
Easter 99, 29.
So at 29, you got to choose a confirmation saint.
This is what I was going to tell you. But I remember what Linda said, that I need to let you talk. So I was trying to be very quiet and not butt in. But I wanted to bring
How's
this
it going?
up. I think I'm doing pretty good so far. Listen, the priest, when we became Catholic, didn't feel like that was an important thing to do.
So you never got to choose a...
No, so I've picked them all. They're all my confirmation saints.
All saints?
All of them.
So like...
No, all of them. All of them. So if I remember going to I was at this monastery, this Benedictine monastery or some sort of, I don't know, like a hermit. Every time I see relics, I just claim them. Like you're my guys. Like they're all. That's it. I get them all because I felt ripped.
All right, so for real, who's do you have a go-to saint? Do you have somebody who?
Well, it changes. Like every year, there'll be an obsession or like a focus for me.
Obsessions?
A couple years ago, I just was reinvigorated with Francis and Claire. Now, I had, of course, a great love for Francis earlier, but I think he really needed to speak to me. And so I started reading through some of the biographies and stories, and this whole idea of detachment was so important to me. And I just was so liberated. For about a year or two, I just kind of stayed there. And then God introduced me to Charles de Foucauld, who was at that time beatified. And I was blown away by him again. Detachment, this idea of secret and hidden life. Because I think there's a part of me I cannot stand the obsessive, competitive infatuation with speakers. Like I don't want that. Like I don't want people to do that with me. So like there's a lot of self-deprecation and deflecting, right? And
you don't want to be the
saints,
celebrity.
No, and these saints are the gifts to me to remind me that God wants me to be a saint. That's what I want. And I don't have to publish 1 million books and be on every possible stage or have the limelight. My sanctity is going to be found in the little ways that I love the people that are with me every single day.
Yeah, so like legitly, if you're going to be a saint, it's going to come through your vocation.
That's right.
So what you do at the Happy Place Homestead, how you love your wife and your children and your grandchildren,
yes,
and how you lead them to the Lord and lead them to heaven.
That's it.
That's the way, right? There's an
That is it.
ordinary way. And there's a saint that inspired me in an ordinary way when I had a chance to go to Hawaii. I went to Molokai. Now, we have our own saint in Syracuse, Marianne Cope. I did not know a lot about St. Damien. And while I was going, I ended up reading a book. I forget, it was through Ignatius Press. And what surprised me was this guy, in his willingness, again, to volunteer to go and to serve the leper colony, his ability to, when he got on the ground, everything was in such disarray. There was really not much of civilization. They were just dropping people off on these islands. Children were being abused. Women were being raped. And the order that he brought, but he literally started doing this with his hands. So he moved into this space and he saw their humanity and he helped bring dignity to them by simply providing them basic things. Building houses, helping them to have a place to use the bathroom that wasn't, just off in some wooded area, and to give them an ability to actually have good human relations with each other. And all while being the spiritual father of them, bringing them the sacraments, doing it by himself, and having the pressure, or at least in some respects, like he was almost being like forgotten by his superiors. So much so, the book talks about the tension that existed even after his death that delayed his canonization. So this guy, in his drive to serve the Lord, in doing it in a really practical way, is inspiring. Because, it's like, at least some of the assignments I've been put into have usually been parishes that have had needs one particular way or another. And I love doing, it might come as a surprise, but I love doing like the manual thing and helping out when I see a need to help respond to that. And to find a saint that literally did that for people in the way that he did, not to say that it's equal, but it's the space where I'm at. So in my ordinary life as a priest, to provide for the spiritual needs, also to provide for their physical needs, and help to give dignity to the space and to where they gather and how they worship. Like, that's inspiring. So he challenges me, but he also inspires me.
Yeah. I think that the person who followed up from him also got leprosy. It was a woman, I believe. Does that sound right? Was it Marianne Cope?
So Marianne Cope never got leprosy.
Oh.
Once Marianne Cope came in, like, they brought such like an approach to the whole clean, like she was the founding president of the Hospital St. Joseph's here in Syracuse. So her approach to things helped to really, truly build on what Damien had done and brought that to one other level. So, the colony is amazing. And just, I think there was only one person there when I was there right before COVID. one person who had Hansen's disease, because it's not leprosy,
Right.
it's Hansen's disease, since it's cured. But the state basically takes care of the place, and the story's amazing. So
It's interesting how I think certain saints come into our life, and a lot of times, the whole idea of a confirmation saint is like you're going to pick that saint, but
or all of them.
or all of them. But the truth is, they do pick us, and I do feel like for us as a family, there are certain saints that have kind of really presented themselves as being very important and influential, and Saint Colby was certainly one of the big ones. But I would say probably for me, the greatest kind of, and I'm the queen of all saints, Our Lady, that Mary was probably the most difficult for me to kind of get my head around. Actually, it was coming to grips with who Mary is and the opportunity that I had to let her be my mother and to have her intercession open the door for me to allow for the other saints to do what they wanted to do. Like, as a convert, I struggle with the whole idea of saints in that intercession, because how can a person who's dead, intercede for us? We're not supposed to pray to the dead. We have that in the Old Testament, but they're more alive more than ever. And if they of course had a virtue, and why would we not? And why would they not want to use that virtue that's exponentially increased, beautifully, kind of come to fruition for our salvation?
Yeah, for the greater glory of God, right? If that's
Yeah.
what they do. And Saint Therese talked about working to save souls after her life,
Right.
And she clearly has. The beautiful thing is, right?
Yes.
Like, do you see the fruits of saints after they die? Is there
Yes.
any miracles or any stories of inspiration or things that you've either personally experienced or of? I know being on the road,
Well, I mean, the way that God works in our life is really interesting. So the way that He works with Linda and the role of the saints is a little bit different than me. But Saint Therese was pretty revolutionary earlier in my journey, because I met a Carmelite nun who was actually getting ready to take her final vows, and she told me one night, she said, "Chris, I'm getting ready to take my final vows. I'm gonna lie down on the ground. It's a marital moment, and I have the opportunity to pray for someone there. And I've chosen you and your family. What do you want me to pray for?" Yeah. And she had given me like the story of a soul and all that. And I was reading that, and I was praying, and I was thinking, and I said to her, I said, "I want you to pray that we could be saints." And I'm thinking, why would you pick us? Like, you don't even know us. It was like an immediate connection. I think Saint Therese brought us together, and for years I would go and interact and work with her. And I think that's what I'm saying. I think partly saints are in my life on such a regular basis that, like, I'm interacting and I'm communicating with them all the time. But it's really, I feel like they're teaching me a lesson of what it can look like to take some of their gifts and put it in my life. Like Foucault, there's nothing that his life did that would even connect to mine. He was in the military. He was a Trappist. I mean, he went off in the
and where
middle
did he
of
die?
nowhere.
Right, exactly.
Right? He's like, the hermit of all hermits. He wanted to live the secret hidden life of Jesus. Why would he be in my life? What does he possibly have to say? And yet the last 2 years, I can't stop with him. He can't stop with me.
I loved how you said it earlier, and it's true that they choose us.
Yes.
The saints come into our lives. We had a chance as a family to travel to Lourdes years ago. And, sometimes these saints, you hear the names, right? Therese, Bernadette, and whatnot. And you're like, oh, it's the same saints. But when we went to Lourdes, and I did not have a particular devotion with or connection to Bernadette, there was a book about her life. And it had some journaling of hers on a retreat that she had been on. And to see like where she grew up in this small little tiny house, to hear why she was by the river to get sticks to help, provide for the family to burn for their fire. And to see that she didn't want fame. She didn't want people to come after her. It annoyed her. It was difficult for her when she entered the convent for people who come and want to hear the story. And that she wanted the hidden life. She desired the hidden life. She did what she was called to do. And she didn't want any fame. She wanted people to go to Jesus. She wanted people to come to the Lord. And I fell in love with that. Like to see and to read just how simple her notes were on retreat. Because, right, sometimes people think like we have to achieve these great things to be saints,
Right.
right? It's not true.
No. In fact, like, I think that maybe sanctity is me letting Jesus love me, and then me loving the people that he brings me. I think that's what my life is supposed to be all about. So that's sanctity, letting Jesus love me so that I can love the people that he gives me. And how that's going to look is really different than St. Therese or Mother Teresa, St. Teresa of Calcutta, or Solanus Casey, or Padre Pio, or Francis. Like, all of these saints, this is it. They lived that life of letting God love them and them loving others in the time that they were in a very unique way. I'm now asked to do that. And I'm married with 9 kids. So if my avenue towards sanctity of letting God love me and loving others is not including them, that's I'm wasting it.
So it's being like who you're called to be in its fullness.
Yeah, that authenticity, right?
Yeah, like right. I'm a pastor of a parish in North Syracuse, New York. You're a dad. You happen to be you're a husband. Your dad. You happen to be a Catholic speaker, but you're a husband and a dad, and that's what the path to holiness is for you.
Right. I don't think that I'm going to get to heaven and Jesus say, "How many people did you speak to?" So
listen, you did 500 Steubenville youth conferences. Come in and receive your reward.
Right. It isn't. Yeah, it's exactly like, did you love your wife? I mean, I think that could be what he asks me. And did you love your children? I hope so. I mean, I hope that I can find new ways every day to serve them, to love them. But that's the thing this is why sanctity in our vocation is so imperative, because there's no pretending there. Like, there's nowhere for me to run. Like, I can't, let me tell you a joke, Linda, to try to smooth things over. like there's the reality of who I am, the authenticity of who we are. Like, that's where sanctity has to happen. So there's no room for me to be anybody except for myself. That's why that vocation is so profound. Like, I can, my ministry is all about vulnerability. But I could go and trick people for a living. But, what you see is what you get. This talk and the passion that I give to 10 people, I will give to 100,000 people.
Which I've seen. What you bring in that sense. Right.
But that's not I don't think that's what God's asking. So the reason authenticity matters is because authenticity at home, letting God love me so I can love my wife and my children, that's the nurturing ground. Like, that's where it happens. So, like, I wish you guys could experience what it's like to sit in the car and to talk about spiritual matters with your best friend. I mean, Linda and I nonstop are unpacking ideas together, talking about our spiritual journey together. It's sharpening each other. We're praising the Lord as we're listening to worship music, going place to place. Like, that journey, we're helping each other to be saints. That's our story. It's not the same for Solanus Casey or Foucault or Bernadette. I mean, I love them. They're in my life, but they're not asking me to perform. They're asking me to be with Jesus. What does it look like? And that's very hard for someone who probably needs medication.
Virtue, right? Heroic virtue in their life, in their state, in their time.
That's exactly. I love that. In your life, in their state, in their time.
In their time. Like, that's what we're called to do. That's how our lives glorify God.
Yes.
So, right, like, dad doing dad things.
Right.
Husband doing husband things.
Yeah.
Right? Not just the ordinary things, but also those things that you point them to the supernatural, like you point them to heaven.
Right. I love that. And I do love that. We may never, ever be recognized by the church as having lived a heroically virtuous life. I can certainly think of a litany of reasons why I wouldn't qualify. But this is the mercy of God, though. Like, even amidst the cataclysmic reality of Chris Paget or Father Chris Celentano, it's the mercy of God. And that, as we fling ourselves upon his mercy, that's the difference maker. And so we've, in our family, learned how to apologize to one another, how to cheer each other on, how to do things that maybe we didn't initially want to do and come to find out that your wife was right. Stuff like that on a regular basis, right?
Almost all the time.
Oh my gosh. If it were up to me, all I would probably do is say to the kids, get a book, read, I'll talk to you later. Like, I mean, but she puts on all the parties and it's all the plans. And we have a million photos and memories because of my wife.
She's like, will you please speak to your children today? No.
Funny enough, there are times that she will have to come in and say, it's time for you to
Stop reading.
Come. We're doing something.
Do you know,
today.
I wonder if there's such an addiction. We should ask her another time. Like, is there addiction to books?
Oh, I'm sure. I think the Lord's taught me a lot about detachment the last few years. And at the end of the day, you know, it would hurt to lose some of the books. But I mean, it's not my ultimate goal is to have just the books here. I want more books in other houses.
I just sent you that picture the other day. Or maybe it was yesterday.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's me.
It was like 3-story tall, like library.
It's a classic. I love that picture. There's another picture after war-torn. I think it was World War II. There's a kid standing in a dilapidated, kind of blown-out library, and he's just looking at some books. Or maybe it's a gentleman, actually. But look, the simple truth is that for many of you out there, maybe you've not nurtured or grown in a relationship with a saint, but just take a few minutes and just kind of maybe spend a little time praying and say, who wants to help me on my journey? I mean, you'll be amazed that saint will present themselves to you, and you'll keep seeing them pop up. And like Father Capon for me was like that not too long ago. Yeah. Like, or Capon, depending on where you're from. But I really was moved. Again, I can't relate to a military life. I don't know what that's like, and nobody in my immediate family was in the military. Now, Linda's father was in the Marines and had a military experience, but
yeah. So the idea of a saint finding us, right? If they're really where we know them to be, like they're with the Lord, and the Lord knows what we need, He'll send people into our lives. So if you believe that, you trust in that, and then you ask, right, like, Lord, reveal to me who it is to walk with me in this journey, because the saints are there to accompany us, cheer us on, inspire us to do all that good stuff. And you may end up getting a saint. Like for me, a 20-something-year-old, girl who lived in a convent, in a cloister, like that, she would inspire me in my priesthood.
right.
How would that be the case, or why would I even know that to be the case? Like, and here it is. That's where it is. Or you might find married saints inspire, a priest or a religious sister, and vice versa. Like called inspires you. So, I guess what I'm saying is, don't pigeonhole yourself into saying I must connect with this saint because I can relate to what they did, or I can relate to their state in life. Like, if the saints are being sent by God into your life, just receive whatever comes.
Right. It was interesting. In the year 2000, I was in Rome, and I was a brand new Catholic, and I got the chance to do some music stuff there, and then for World Youth Day, and then I went to St. Sebastian's Catacombs. And it's a fascinating experience, especially as a brand new convert, because along the walls and the catacombs, they had inscribed, like prayer petitions, like, Mary, pray for us, or St. Peter, pray for us. And what you started to realize is that early church, that beginning church, recognized the importance and the value of asking for the intercession of those who had gone before them, and knew that they would pray for them. Like, that was radical, just because of the physical, tangible evidence of the communion of saints right there in that early church.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like, I had a chance to tour when I was in Rome myself, the Scavi tour, they call it, which is underneath St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah.
And where they found St. Peter's tomb. And it was because the graffiti of prayers written on that wall that helped lead them to where they were able to find the bones, the remains of Peter. And personally, at least for me, like, Peter's been all of a sudden just come into my life like a rock star. And it's their prayers that we have believed since the beginning, that there's power in that prayer. There's close proximity. They're in heaven. They're able to intercede, and they'll find us. Because I just went on the tour, Peter there, and then years later, all of a sudden, he's interceding, he's encouraging.
I love that. Saints, they'll find us.
They will. So thanks for tuning in.
There you go. It's not what you think.
It's really not what you think. And hopefully there's more subscribers than your family and mine. Although they're going to know that we filmed like a bunch of these in a row because your sweatshirt's the same.
You're wearing the same outfit too.
But buddy, I can.